Euh, peut-être, Julie, tu peux peut-être lancer de ton côté aussi au cas où il y aura un problème. Comme ça, on est deux à enregistrer en cas de problème. Merci.
Okay. Okay. So hi again. So I'm Adeli. I'm an astrophysicist, and I graduated with my PhD in 2020, and then I moved to Canada, to Quebec in Montreal, for a postdoc, where I spent 3 years during COVID. So it was a lot of fun, but we can talk about it later. And then I got hired in the CNRS after this postdoc, so in 2023, so a year and a half ago.
Thank you, Adili. So, Louise, can I ask you, sorry, to introduce yourself once more, very quickly?
Hi, so yes, I'm doing math and I did two postdocs, one in the United States for 6 months and one in Switzerland for 1 year.
Thank you. Perhaps we can go. I see Constant on my screen afterward.
Hello, everyone. For myself, it's slightly different to what was written in the mail. In fact, I did my PhD in Denmark and I followed it up with a postdoc for an additional 2 years. And then I went back to France to CA, where I also had a postdoc for 2 years. And afterwards, I candidated for the CNRS, where I got hired on the concours exam of 2023.
Thank you. And we have last Thibaut, sorry.
Hi, so I'm Thibaut Tubiana. I'm a computational biologist. After my PhD, I did first short postdoc in industry in a pharmaceutical company called Servier. Then I joined for a 3 years postdoc in Norway at Bergen. And after I came back in France in 2022 for a 3 years postdoc as well. And it was shortened a bit because I got my position last year.
Thank you very much, the four of you. So perhaps we can go also in a large discussion or one by one as you prefer to see a little bit how you prepared your departure for postdoc, how you found first your postdoc. Did you need to find a fellowship or what was funded by the lab sometimes? So and how was your departure in foreign country? We know that sometimes it can be difficult because there is a lot of paperwork to fill to get some work permit or visa or whatever. So if you can explain perhaps this first step of preparing, finding and preparing the departure in postdoc. I don't know who wants to start.
Maybe we can keep the same order.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's me first. In mathematics, there's a platform where the postdocs are listed, or many of them, which is called the Math Jobs. And if you don't have much idea, you just scroll. It's a very long web. There are a lot of positions, but discussing about it, then you can find some interesting ones for you. And so I applied to one position which was linked to a semester program. So I knew a little the organizers, and then that's the first position I got. For the second one, it was more informal. It was someone in the community who was searching for a postdoc and talked about it during a workshop. And so, yeah, since I had a profile that matched, we didn't go really through an application. I got the offer right away. For the paperwork, the USA was not so easy because it was right in the middle of COVID, so getting a visa was very tough. So I think I got my visa 2 weeks before leaving or something like that. So it was quite stressful, but at the same time, no one was really stressed out. So I guess that's just how it goes. And then, yeah, I don't know if I should let other people speak first and go back or.
Can I ask you a question, Louise? Because when you introduce yourself, you said you were supposed at the beginning, so it was before I started the recording, you were supposed to live for 1 year in the US for the first postdoc, and finally you end up staying only 6 months. Is it
Yes.
because you had this opportunity by networking to find the second one in Switzerland, and so you moved earlier than planned, or it was like for other reason, or?
Oh, yes, exactly. For the first postdoc, I only had a 1 year contract, so I needed to apply right away to find a second postdoc. And in the second offer, I needed to start in February at the latest. So I didn't have a choice, actually. I resigned from the first postdoc.
Okay. And so, a question related to the funding to go to this postdoc in the US and in Switzerland, and especially because you say you needed to arrive before this date for the second one. So I assume it was linked to a funding, but
Yes,
is
exactly.
it you had to apply for fellowship, or the lab had a funding and was supporting your salary?
So it's the supervisor who got a fellowship, and so he could hire anyone. And so I didn't have to apply on top of that.
Okay. And it was this in the US and in Switzerland, both?
Yes, in the US, the institution I went to is specialized in semester programs.
Okay.
So to welcome new, young people, they have specific postdoc positions if the semester program is interesting for you.
So there is a question in the chat, so I will tell you now because it's very relevant. Could you tell us why you decided to do a postdoc or many postdoc, and what were your motivation? Perhaps it's the moment because we talk about the beginning and how to move to the postdoc to find it. So, as after the PhD or during your PhD, you already knew you wanted to do a postdoc in academia, for example, for sure, and staying in academia?
Yes, I was wanting to stay in academia. So in this case, you need to find a postdoc. I wouldn't know for other kind of careers, but it's very common if you want to stay in academia.
Thank you. So for the Menti, don't hesitate to ask questions, to raise your hand or to write your question in the chat. No problem. Okay, thank you, Louise. So perhaps we can go with Adélie, can explain her part.
Sure. Thank you. So for me, in astrophysics, a bit the same as in math. So we have a website with a lot of ads on it for different types of jobs, also permanent positions. So that was pretty easy to find a lot of different options. I think in the end, I ended up applying to maybe 15 positions, and I got 2 offers. Bon. But it was the offers of the jobs that were closest to what I was doing. So I think it wasn't totally random. But so I applied to a bunch of those, and actually the postdoc I ended up going to is I didn't find it on the platform. I actually emailed the person who became my supervisor later. And I asked him I introduced myself, asked him if he had any funding opportunities or availabilities that maybe weren't online or anything, because that happens, as we said.
We lost Adélie.
One point.
Okay, so perhaps we can continue with Constant in this case, and she will talk later when she will be connected.
Hello. Yes. Sorry. my VPN gave up. Okay. Sorry. Sorry about that. So yeah. So sometimes it's the permanent researchers have some money to spend on postdocs that you don't know about. So it's always good to ask, I think, if you're interested in working with someone. And so in this case, he didn't have specifically money, but he pointed me to a fellowship that I hadn't seen before. So that's what I applied for, and he was paying for half of it, and the fellowship was giving me half of the other money. So it was a bit of a hybrid format. And yeah, and I stayed for 3 years because that was the length of the contract. So I think for me, a big parameter also in the applications was the length of the contract, because as Louise said, if it's a short one, then you immediately have to start applying again, and that really takes a lot of energy. It takes a toll on you, and also the environment. So who I was going to work with, the type of atmosphere in the lab, etc. Because that's important for me.
It was more linked to the science and the environment and the country. Was it very important for you? Because some people sometimes want to go, especially in this country or in this part of the world. So was it important for you or not to the place?
No, not specifically. I was pretty free. I was lucky enough that I could go anywhere. But my other offer was in the US, and I preferred going to Canada because I thought it was a bit closer to Europe, maybe culturally. So.
And how it was to go to Canada at the level of paperwork to enter the country and to be able to stay? Is it easy? I know a little bit the US, and it's not very complicated, but it's not also very simple. You apply and you are never sure you will get your visa. In Canada, is it easier?
So again, same as Louise, it was during COVID, so everything was more complicated than it normally is. So it took a while, but for at least, I'm a French citizen, so for a French citizen and coming on an academic job, it was extremely easy. It was just a bit stressful because of COVID, so I wasn't sure I would be allowed in the country, etc. But in terms of visa, it's pretty easy, and then it's actually also pretty easy to stay. So if you're happy in Canada and you get a postdoc there after a year or two, you can apply for permanent residency, and it's they until now, maybe they might change, but they have a policy where they really open to immigration, say skilled immigration at least, and so that can also be an important factor if you want to move to a specific country.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move with Constant.
So in my case, I got, so as I said, it was during my PhD that I first moved to Denmark, and the opportunity came from a proposition from my supervisor during my internship. Essentially, what I can recommend to look for, or I got hired under doctoral networks, the European doctoral networks called the ITN. These are essentially a consortium of many laboratories throughout Europe, usually, which gathers many PhD students. And I went there essentially because of the subject. I mean, this is the things that drove me away. It was very interesting for me. Maybe I didn't mention it, but I'm working as a physicist in ultra-fast laser science. So this is the topic of my research on atoms and molecules. And the transfer from France to Denmark was actually fairly easy. In Denmark, people speak very well English, so it's actually very convenient. And also, they are fairly well organized in terms of social security. So essentially, you can easily just open a bank account and you get a specific number called the CPR, and from there you can actually access a little bit of every services in the country. So I can recommend it as it's a newbie package, you could say. Afterwards, I stayed essentially a little bit longer for the postdoc. It was I had this opportunity because my supervisor got extra funding, and essentially my motivation for that was I wanted to go back to France, but I also wanted I know that I had to get some papers, some articles ongoing. And staying in the same laboratory with the same people made it easier. And also there were some other research opportunities that made me stick. After 2 years, I really wanted to go back to France. And the way I went for this second postdoc, the way I came back was essentially again following a specific topic. I wanted to do. I don't know if you heard about, but there was some things with harmonic generation a few years back with André Lié, a Nobel Prize, and I was really interested into this topic. And I looked for different laboratories in France that were using this kind of technology, and I contacted them and applied directly. And maybe I can just conclude with that. I had some chance because they already had some fundings. But anyway, they asked me to candidate for also European funding called the Marie Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship. And I candidated for it. I got it. And I think this helps also to boost your curriculum vitae. And maybe we go for the next part of how to get higher in CNRS.
So just to do a comment of this Marie Curie, we posted it. So we have a Padlet for the speaker because you are not aware, but we have a Padlet for the mentee and the mentor where we post different type of info. And several weeks ago, a while ago, I posted the call for the Marie Curie postdoc fellowship. And because I talk about it, it's to get a postdoc, a fellowship for a postdoc in academia, but it can also work to get a postdoc with a private company, a biotech, a startup, or a pharma. So if you're interested to move later after your PhD for a postdoc, don't hesitate to look at the website. The call is open until I think it's 10th of September or something like that. So, and you see, we have Constant who got this kind of fellowship to come. For him, it was to come back to France, but for you, it can be to go somewhere else. Okay, thank you very much. I just check because there is a message in the chat. Perhaps it's a question.
No, sorry, just a comment from me.
Yeah. It's a comment about the pension, the retirement. Yes, this can be a big problem in the US. So I think in Quebec, so there is agreement in Quebec with France. So this is very nice because in the US there is no agreement. So we are working, but we are not, years are not counting for the retirement. In Europe, most of the countries have agreement, and Switzerland, which is not part of EU, has also agreement with France, for example, to count the number of years you worked over there. So thank you for the comment. It's a very interesting and important point to tell. Yeah. And last, we have Thibaut.
So for me, I found my first postdoc. So it was in industry. Actually, it was in a conference, and so there was someone that was actually in this company, but she presented her work, and she said, "By the way, we have opening position for postdocs," and I applied, and I got it. And in the beginning, I wanted to go for a first postdoc in Norway because I know the lab, but the PI of the lab didn't got funding at the moment, so I took the position in the industry, and I think it was also a good way to compare academia and industry. And after 1 year, I just applied again in Norway, and she had funding, so I managed to go there. It was kind of easy actually to go to Norway. I think maybe it's close to Denmark with the bank ID and so on. They have the same system where the most difficult part is just to open a bank account. But if you are coming from an European country and you have an European passport, it's so easy. So it's like, yeah, it's to have a position in academia, it usually said that you have to go abroad, and so yeah, Norway, maybe a Nordic country are the easy, the cheat code for that because everyone speaks English so well. In 3 years, I didn't learn Norwegian at all because like everyone was speaking English, and everyone was so nice, and so it was a good deal. I went there just before COVID, so the activity during COVID was a bit strange. It was a bit hard to travel, but everyone got this issue. And after I went back in France, so I applied to a grant to have a funding to go back actually to the lab where I did my PhD because I really like this team and this lab and the environment. And so I really wanted to go there and have a permanent position there. And then after 2 years, I didn't got my CNRS position, so I applied for 1 extra years of funding for my postdoc, and I got the position this year. So it was I had to try 2 times. I think I was lucky the second time as well because I was on the outside the limit, and I just managed to get in after. And but yeah, and so the point that you said, Geraldine, about be careful about the lab you choose, because it's true, not every section allowed people to go back to their team where they did their PhD. A lot of people warn me about that it has to be justified, and we have to be careful about that, and so on. And it's true because in some section, I mean, it was a no directly because yeah, it's not possible to do that. So depending the section, you have to be careful about that because you have to take that into consideration as well.
Just also, we don't know in general, at least me, I'm not aware. Perhaps your lab in general can know because there is always this question of can we go back in the PhD lab or not? Is it allowed or not? And we had very not long ago a panel discussion about academic recruitment, and we had somebody from section 21 of CNRS, and he was telling us that it's not a problem in this section to come back in the PhD lab, but some section can be more difficult, yes, about this and say, no, you should not come back in the PhD lab. So
I think the best way to ask someone in the jury, for me it was Julie that said, yeah, you can go in this section, don't worry. But I know someone from another section, the 51, I wanted to apply there, and she said, yeah, if you can try, but you will not. Yeah, it's not hard to apply in different section. You just submit the same document again in different section. So it's you can change it if you want, but you can have the same as well if you want. So it's yeah.
And so we have a question in the chat because we already talked with the 4 speaker. So how closely related were your postdoc and PhD research topics? So because yes, the postdoc can be also a moment where you can change totally of subject to learn something new or in a new environment, or you continue and you specialize yourself in the same topic on the same technique, for example, or whatever. So for the 4 of you, what can you say about this, the topic or the techniques in PhD and in postdoc? And there is a second question. She asked, why did you all decided to do part of your postdoc abroad, at least one part of it?
Yeah, so in my case, for instance, it was not so far the topics, but then since I was in a semester programs, there are many different things that I could learn. The reason was that during my PhD, I tried on 2 different directions already, so it was not necessary, but it's advised if you to have at least 2 specialties when you end your postdoc, I would say. And for the part abroad, it depends on your situation, I guess. If you already have international experience, you went abroad during your PhD, I think it's not necessary to go again in a different country. But I did all of my studies near Paris in the area or the suburbs. And so for me, it would be very strange not to go.
I don't know if you want to add something, Thibaut, Constant, Adélie, as you want.
I think you're awesome.
Okay. I think it's important to, or at least for myself, the idea was to keep some basics, to be, when you move to a different laboratory and you have to be motivated by the research that it proposes, and you have to also think about what you learned. And the idea is really, I think, to profit the most for it is to have already a basis, at least either experimentally or theoretically, and go for essentially an extension or a continuation. So I wouldn't recommend to completely change topic. I think it's easier also to go with something that you have at least a little bit of basis on. And this is, or at least this was my strategy. And concerning, I don't know, there was other questions, and I think many coming up following the bad postdoc experience. I heard a lot of bad postdoc experience. I think my best recommendation is really visit the lab, talk to the people, and make an opinion on yourself. And also don't get stuck somewhere where it's not feeling good. One of the best recommendation, or one of the easiest ways, is actually to attend to workshop or conferences, as people mentioned. Usually you have a lot of people that are saying that they have open positions or are very willing to discuss. And I think it's important to take the opportunity to go directly and talk with them if you're interested into the subject.
Yeah, I had a bad postdoc experience actually in industry. And I got some warning before, and I didn't listen the warning, and I didn't manage to get the message behind the warnings. So you have to listen and listen people. And I thought it will be fine. It was not so fine, but it was a short-term contract, so it's at the end it's done, and you survive. So it's not the end of everything, and it was 1.5 years for me without publication, and it still got my position because at the end, if you manage to justify it, I think it's okay. And depending the different topics, if you want to apply actually in the CNRS, you have to write a narrative resume, and your experience have to make sense, because if you go to a lot of different topics and you don't have something that linked between all your experience, maybe it's bad. I mean, this is how I had to construct my resume. I have to to draw a line between all my experience to construct a narrative, and to say that I did my PhD because I wanted to do that, then I wanted to gain this experience, so I did this postdoc, and then I wanted to have more expertise in this, so I choose another postdoc, and so on. So at the end, I'm the expert on this topic and for the project that I propose to the CNRS. So it has to follow, a narrative. And for the postdoc aboard, it's also because when you apply to the CNRS position, you have to check a box saying that if you are aboard or not. So at some point, and I think it's in our métier, in our job, it's a fantastic opportunity that we have, that we can travel easily and go to another place easily. So it's really something that we have to do.
The geographic mobility is very important for the position, but as we were saying at the previous panel discussion on recruitment in academia, if for some reason, whatever the reason, it can be a personal, familial, medical reason or whatever, you cannot move to another country. At least what you should do, it's a kind of thematic mobility. You stay in France, but you try to find a lab where you will learn, you will be in the same topic, but you will learn something new skills, new model or whatever. And like that, it's going pretty smoothly when you apply for a CNRS in CERM or university in a high position. You can justify by a thematic change in this case.
I would just also add that I mean, everybody kind of does it in academia, but it doesn't mean that moving abroad and especially far is easy. It's difficult, depending on what you leave behind and what you find there. And so that's something to take into account when you apply. And I would also think that it's better to have a successful PhD at home than a PhD that goes horribly abroad, both for yourself and for your CV. So voilà, in the end, there's always a bit of lenience, as Geraldine was saying. There's no absolute rule, depending on the case.
And compared to 10, 15 years ago, where the politic was really to have the people moving abroad, and especially in the US, now really people are more open and you can do your postdoc in France, even if you did the PhD, and it's well accepted, I would say, compared to 15 years ago or 20 years ago. Perhaps I can just comment on the bad postdoc when you are in a bad situation. I already met several people, and I was one of them. I did my postdoc 3 years in the US, and so everything personally, my exchange with other people was really nice. My colleagues, everything was nice. The subject was nice, but my boss was really awful. We were like 8 or 9 postdoc in the lab. It's a US lab, so only postdoc, and we were like psychologically harassment. It was harassment really, and so even the institute knew and everything, and she had problem also with other PI. So, and at the end, she even got fired of the institute because everything was going so badly. And so, for example, in the lab, different people behave differently. So it depends of you, but because I met also other people having other kind of problem and being in bad environment, if you are really in a bad situation and you cannot handle it, it's not a problem to leave after 6 months, after 1 year. It will, because most of the time people say, yeah, but I will have a hole in my CV if I start a postdoc, but I'm not finishing. People will ask why I was here only for 6 months, 1 year, and I didn't finish, I didn't publish. It's not a big deal on your CV when you will apply between a PhD and you will leave this postdoc to find another one more successful and in better environment. It will not be a problem. It will not be seen. And if you go for the CNRS position and they ask you the question, probably I assume you can be also honest, saying I was in a not so good environment, not good for me, at least. So I changed, and now I did the second postdoc in a better environment. Me, I stayed because I could handle it, and I really wanted to go to the end of the project and to publish something, but it was a personal consideration. Other postdocs, 2 of them left after 6 months and 9 months, for example. So it's really personal. And most of the time you can discuss with people around, people from the lab around you in the same institute, in the same university, and they can give you advice, help, support you. So, yeah. But don't hesitate to leave. It's unbearable. Don't stay in a toxic environment if you can not, really.
And I think there is a shortage of postdoc, I mean, in our lately, so you will not have trouble to find another position. And people understand that now not working in a toxic environment is very important.
And even if you do a few months or 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, like me, in a toxic environment, don't be stuck with this, because with this, at least me, I learn a lot of things, how to handle people who are toxic or who are really difficult to interact with. So keep only the positive side of this, and you learn something, obviously, about this experience, even if it was a bad experience. So. perhaps we can move on. The next part was to know that for this how it was for you when you were in your postdoc at the personal or professional level, the interaction with the people in the country, with your colleague, with other labs or whatever, because we know sometimes in postdoc it can be very nice. You can have very nice interaction and nice collaboration and learn a lot of things from people around you, your colleague in the lab or the lab around, or it can be competition sometimes in some labs. Can be the competition between postdoc to be the first to publish or whatever. So, and personally also because you have also a personal life and you meet the people of the country or people from everywhere in the world, and perhaps you kept contacts, you are still in contact with these people. I don't know. So let us know what is your thought about the professional and personal interaction and feeling you keep from this experience in postdoc.
So I see there's also a question in the chat. Yes, I ended my first contract before the end, but it actually 1 year contract means 9 months because they didn't pay for the summer holiday. It's quite common in the US that you need to find something else during summer. So it was just a short cut in the contract. And it was okay there because the semester program was during the first semester, so it was already over, and I didn't not have a very scientific reason to stay anymore, just because 1 year is more convenient. But it's okay actually to end a contract before the end if both parties estimate that you did enough. Like if you have a 3 year contract and you end after 2 years, I think no one will be shocked. Then it depends on how it went, of course, but. And other ways, yes, one thing that was not so easy when being abroad was applying actually, because I didn't have so much contact with France, and this is something I could have prepared a bit better because I didn't know all of the rules for the application, and some of them are implicit. So I learned when I went back to Europe. And it was a bit stressful because I discovered, oh, in my application, I forgot to put some things that everyone should know. So it's important to keep touch with people and even ask stupid questions like what do I need to put in my application? Who do I need to contact? When? I also missed some deadlines because I just didn't know. So yeah, it's best to have a point of contact. But maybe I can leave the others to say what how they thought.
I don't know who want to speak. Thibaut, you were saying that in Norway, people are very nice, and I think you enjoy a lot being over there for 6 years.
3 years.
3 years, sorry.
Yeah. And I keep contact in my previous lab actually because it was in my head since the beginning. I wanted to go back because first my partner was still in Paris where I was, and I wanted to go back to this institute because it was where my life was actually, and so it was also a geographic. I forgot the word, even in French. Pinpoint. I wanted to go back here, so it was. So I still, keep contact, and at some point we decided to try a grant together to go back, so I can go back in France, and I like when things are prepared, and I'm maybe a bit maniac about that. So I wanted to always have something prepared, not have a break in my resume, mostly for financial reason. So I started like a year before having my postdoc to prepare my comeback.
Thank you, Thibaut. Constant?
Yeah. So, I mean, I prepared it twice. At the end of my PhD, I was hesitating to come back to France. So I first started to look for opportunities. And it's only on the very end that I decided to stay in Denmark again because of the atmosphere was good. And yeah, life, life feels kind of easy there. And to come back to France, I was really motivated essentially. So I had no partner, so it was really to go back to see my family and my friends. That was a main reason. For otherwise, I wouldn't have minded go elsewhere. So it was really for yeah, a personal reason. And the transfer was actually I would say relatively easy. I candidated, in fact, for a permanent position at CA, and I heard about it, and I just it was a little bit like the CNRS position. You had to propose a project and also send a CV there. And I did not, or I didn't get hired, but the people there proposed me a postdoc afterwards. So I had a few laboratories in mind, and at the end, I got lucky. I only had to candidate at one. And afterwards, for the CNRS position, it's really, you meet some people. I was more interested in academia, but I had no experience in teaching. This is the issue when you get European funding, is that usually there is no teaching activity. So then if you want to go for assistant professor or maître de conférence, it's a bit harder to justify on your curriculum vitae. And this is actually what happened to me. I had no real chance to give any teaching. And I met some people. They encouraged me to candidate at CNRS, which I did. I think Thibaut summarized well the CNRS candidature. You have to justify or what all your or try to gather all your experiences and get something out that is of interest for science, and that you are the main person, the skills to do it.
And did you keep in touch with your lab? And for example, for collaboration or something, now then you have your position, your permanent
Yeah.
position?
Yeah, overall, I stayed for 5 years, so it's a lot. So, I mean, you really start to make bonds with people, and especially with my supervisor. So we are still in touch. Essentially, I'm still. So we got a long in touch because there were still ongoing publications, but otherwise also new research activities. There are some big facilities called Synchrotron or XFEL, and you can deposit some project there. And this is what I'm doing, and I'm still including them. And so, yeah, we are still in touch. A bit overlapping in research. We are becoming competitors, but I think it's still in a friendly environment. So it's all right.
And Adélie, you, for example, did you keep contact with your lab in Canada? Are you collaborating with them or?
Yes, so I'm still when I joined Canada, that goes back to a question we were talking a bit before, but during my PhD I had done mostly theory stuff, say, and when I moved to Canada was also to get new skills in terms of observations with telescopes, because that's astrophysics. And so doing that, I joined a big collaboration. So I'm still part of that collaboration and working with these people from France. And I think there was a good argument in my CNRS application that I was bringing this new collaboration that wasn't really active in France, to France and to the community. So I'm still working with them, trying to get some funding to visit each other and maybe have students working on common projects. But also when I was there, actually the lab I got hired at for the CNRS is the lab I did my PhD in. So I knew them pretty well, and that helped. They supported my application. But I think yeah, that's also what we said. The concours is supposed, the CNRS concours is supposed to be really objective, and like everything's defined in the law, blah blah blah. But in practice, it's not so much like that. So you really need to have somebody. It's really better if you have somebody who can tell you the little tricks, I think. So it's good to try and keep in touch, or get in touch with people. Ask if you can do a seminar or something to discover a new French lab if you cannot return to your PhD lab with the CNRS, because it'll be really helpful to talk with the people and showing that you integrate in this lab well, etc., and have collaborations in France. But anyway, I feel like we're getting a bit away from the postdocs now and looking more about academia, so I'll stop there.
Can I ask you a question which can be also interesting to know? You came back to your PhD lab. I assume you were not the only PhD, perhaps the senior, or there is PhD before you or just after you. And when you go back to your PhD lab, how did you discuss with your previous supervisor about this? And because we know the lab cannot support and present 5 different people to the concours, CNRS concours every year. So it was obvious for you and your PhD advisor because perhaps you had a very good CV with a lot of publication or whatever, or it was more a discussion to know who they will support, and it was a discussion you needed to start it before to be sure you will be the candidate they will support for the CNRS concours, for example.
So actually in our section 17, you could have as many candidates as you want. So it's literally all the old PhDs apply, and whatever happens. I was never told I was given priority over someone else or something. So I don't really know. Yeah. But I know it depends on the field as well.
In biology, at least in my field, it was a little bit different. And the labs were saying, okay, we can present one person at INSERM, one person at CNRS, one person can try for the university, but they couldn't put like 4 candidates in parallel the concours. So, and because they knew anyway, if already one got it, it would be already better, very good. So 2 would be almost impossible in the same team of the same lab. Yeah. So, okay. I don't know, the Monty, do you have other question for the 4th speaker? So there is one question in the chat. Nobody dare to speak up. So during your last year of your PhD, when you did your start, when did you start searching for a postdoc? Sorry. So when did you start? It was at half of your PhD, last year of your PhD, at the end of your PhD, really? And it's also, it can be because you didn't have time, you need to focus on your paper to publish, to focus on the manuscript writing, or I don't know. Or did you anticipate a lot to find your postdoc?
So I can just say quickly, I think it's something you really anticipate. Also because you can try to plan everything, have your papers to make a good project, etc. That's great if you can do that. It's not always possible. But also in terms of some applications come very early, like the Marie Curie is in September, and a bunch of fellowships, especially in North America, pretty early, before January, and Europe sometimes a bit later, but people tend to move a bit earlier, at least in my field. But also, I was just wanted to say also you can think about it in terms of preparing your application. People will ask you for references from researchers. So it's good to start thinking early about who will be writing your recommendation letters. In my field, usually they ask 2 to 3, and it's better if it's not only your PhD supervisor. So that's also motivation to maybe go out to people, try to ask your supervisor to initiate new collaborations with new people that they can write letters for you later, this type of thing. Because when you realize it's already sometimes a bit too late, so it can be good to think about it before.
I think it was a perfect answer because yeah, it's you have to think a bit about it before it's too late. For me, it was 1 year before, approximately.
Yeah, I'm the bad student. I mean, it was really by the end. I think it's a little bit too late. My advice would be what I said before is essentially, I mean, look for things that you find interested during conferences, during workshop, initiate contact. I mean, talk with the people, and then everything will be smoother because usually one of the fields is that we are getting hyper specialized. So at the end, we know many people from the community, and even if you ask someone if he has a position, he can redirect you to some people else. So I mean, really through conferences, discuss with the people, and I think getting the references or all the sort of administrative part ongoing and well prepared is a very good advice.
There is another question. Are there fundings of the French state for former PhD students in French lab to go to other country for postdoc? It exists in the other country, but I don't know for France. I think there is perhaps FRM or foundation like that can give postdoc fellowship to go abroad. I think there is probably some. And after, depending, I'm in biology, so we have also a lot of non-profit organization on some kind of disease who are funding fellowship. So, but I don't know if it's only to stay in France or not. I don't know in your field if you are aware. A lot of people apply for fellowship in the country where you are going.
I think there is a specific program for Marie Curie, no?
There is Marie Curie. There is also the Human Science Frontier Program. There is a EMBO program. I don't know if it's only linked to biology or if it's for any field, but you can get postdoc fellowship from Human Frontier Science Program and EMBO. They are very competitive, but you can apply for both of them.
Sorry, I had a question regarding the Marie Curie Fellowship. It closed in September, but you have to have your PhD already, right, to be able to apply. So it's not for a PhD student who will pass their PhD at the end of the year, for instance. It's like we have to wait for next year. Is that right?
I believe you can delay the start. So you need maybe you need to check. I'm not sure, but I think if you are on the way to pass your PhD in the coming year, you can just delay a little bit the start of the grant, and it should work out.
Perhaps check on the call. There is all the eligibility criteria, and perhaps if you defend your PhD before the end of the year, it could work for somebody applying at the deadline in September. So, but you need to look on the call.
Yeah, the call say that you have to own a PhD
before the deadline of the call in September.
Thank you.
At the time of the deadline.
There is a question. Sorry, in the chat, is there a new question? No. But there is a question which has not been asked, but sometimes people ask at least for me, when I discuss with people looking for postdoc, a lot of time people don't dare to apply for postdoc to different labs they wish to apply to because their paper article are not published yet, and they say no, I cannot apply because my paper are not out, so nobody will be interested by my CV and to hire me as postdoc if my paper are not accepted. And at least what I saw in biology, don't inhibit yourself because it's not a criteria, and you can find a PI and a lab wishing to take you as postdoc because there is a good feeling between you because you have the skills they need, and they can be a really add-on for the lab. Even if your paper are not accepted, it's really feasible to get a postdoc, and your paper will be accepted later anyway. So don't inhibit yourself about this. I don't know what are your thoughts, Thibaut, Louise, Constant, or Adélie about this, but at least what I saw is this on my side.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. It's okay, and everyone know how it works, so it's okay. And if you don't have enough papers, they will not they will not select you. And if you have enough, if they don't care about that, they will select you. So it's just that it just could be a missed opportunity. So it's okay.
I think probably also it depends of the field, but anyway, if you are interested by a topic, by a lab, apply, and you will see. But it's really try anyway. Always try.
Also,
Worst case.
sorry, vas-y, Constant.
No, please. Okay.
Okay, I was just going to say, I saw a statistic one day that really made me angry, which is that when you have a job ad and women who don't fit all the criteria, they will tend to not apply, whereas men will anyway. And so just think about that and think like, okay, maybe if I was a man, I would have applied anyway. So why don't I apply? At least it works for me. Maybe it'll work for you. I don't know.
So we talk about postdoc, but if for any reason you don't want to go in postdoc and after your PhD you want to look for a job, what said Adélie, it's really true. It has been shown by psychological studies, and women don't dare to apply if they are not fitting perfectly to the position. So, but don't inhibit yourself also for this, because the men will tend to less inhibit themselves. So go in the competition and try, even if you fit only with 60% or 70% of the criteria. It's not a big deal. It depends. Sometimes they will look for the perfect candidate having all the skills, and sometimes they don't really know. They just hope the best candidate, and you can be the best one fitting with the lab or with the job as a company you want to apply to. So,
Worst case, they say no. So it's and then you just don't have to take it personally. It's just circumstances are a way bigger factor than your own profiles. Keep that in mind and just look for the next one.
And it could even be good, actually. At least they will know your name, they will know what you do, and so next time, maybe it works out.
So is there any other question before we end up this session? Don't hesitate to ask. It's the moment, now or never.
Actually, I'm so sorry, Geraldine. I have to leave.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to contact by email, I'm okay with that. If you want to give the email, I'm perfectly fine with that.
So when I sent the email, perhaps the Monty didn't notice, but in copy email, I put 4 of you. So with your professional email address. So if they
Perfect.
want, they have your contact and they can contact you.
Thank you so much for
No, thank you
debating
very
with
much
me.
for taking the time to come and to testify about your experience. So thank you very much. So if there is no other question anyway, So thank you, Thibaut, thank you, Louise, Constant, Adélie, and thank you all the Monty who attended this event. Thank you, and I wish you a good evening and a good summer and good vacation for everybody.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks for
Bye,
asking.
everyone.